Welcome to Everything Life and Real Estate. Let's get started with our hosts, Linda McKissick and Dana Gentry.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Everything Life and Real Estate. I'm Linda McKissick, and normally I'd have Miss Dana Gentry. However, she's on a plane today, and so we're going to just get after it with a wonderful guest that we have for you. If you haven't read, I'm encouraging you to read the book, Profit First. And so, Mike, if you would, because who in the heck can say your last name? And my first question to you is, how in the world did you spell it when you were in kindergarten? But if you would, go ahead and give an intro for yourself, Mike, and tell us, how did you become someone who wrote an amazing book like Profit First?
Thank you. I spelled the name by crying, just lots and lots of crying and getting beat up. And so I am an author of, as you shared, of Profit First, but also other books, and am on a mission to really serve entrepreneurs. There's this phenomenon I call entrepreneurial poverty. The day you start your real estate business, any kind of business, the world thinks, oh my God, you're a millionaire now. All you do is sit on the beach and drink Mai Tais. And the reality is there's this gap. The reality for the vast majority of entrepreneurs is constant struggle, no time, and get the perception of success. How do we close that gap? How do we make that success a reality? Because entrepreneurs do change the world. They support our economy. So how do we close that? That's my mission. And I'm on this mission because I myself have been an entrepreneur my entire adult life, ever since college. And I've had some of the greatest uppity ups, but I've had some of the darkest struggles. And it's the struggles that no one talks about. After selling two companies in a row and thinking I was hot shit, I started a third company and I had no idea what I was doing and evaporated all my wealth just out of pure arrogance and ignorance. And the awakening moment was I had to come home to my family. We had just moved into a new house and tell my wife and my three children that we're actually going to lose our house. We lost it 30 days later. We lost all of our possessions. And Linda, you know the story. I looked at my daughter. She was 9 years old and said, I can't pay for your horseback riding lessons. We were broke. And she stood up and she ran out of the room, as fast as she could. And she ran to her bedroom and grabbed her piggy bank. And she came back to me and she goes, Daddy, I'll start providing for us because I know you can't. And every time I think about that, I get emotional.
Oh, yes.
It was so upsetting and so visceral and so important for me to hear. And I was so ashamed of myself, so proud of her. And that's when I realized that the fundamental principles to entrepreneurship, I had not mastered them. I did not understand them. That I was adding all of these myths and beliefs and complexity to entrepreneurship when there was a better path. So I've devoted, from that day forward, that was back in 2008, I devoted my life to eradicating entrepreneurial poverty, and I do it through writing books to simplify the entrepreneurial journey.
I love it. I love it. And one of the things you said is, we are entrepreneurs and we do want to be successful, but sometimes we get confused about what success is, right? Sometimes we think busy is success, right?
Yeah. And I thought tons of money was success. It's not. Like, money is a great vehicle and support mechanism to do the things you want to do or do the things you're called to do. But I think success is really being, at least my definition is being joyful and being of service. And I think those two components are success. And so our business, I think, is the ultimate platform for that because it empowers us to do the work that we get enjoyment from. So that's the source of joy. But also, I think entrepreneurship, business ownership is an opportunity to be impactful, to be of service of others, to in real estate, you grant wishes, dreams for people by giving them properties, affording them a pathway to get there. And we can't do that unless we're not financially viable. So we have to address that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love one of the parts in your book where you say revenue generation is by all accounts the pitfall we so often fall into. As one falls deeper and deeper, it tends to justify anything that brings in more money, even if it means evading your taxes. And I believe in the real estate industry because I know early on in my real estate career, there were years I was scrambling for the taxes. And so that's not uncommon for anybody who's an entrepreneur to just be chasing the revenue and not be paying attention to that stuff.
The biggest bill associated with entrepreneurship, owning a business that is least prepared for by entrepreneurs, is the tax bill. right? Because you run a business, you will have a tax responsibility. And as a business owner, often you have more income than our contemporaries that are employees. And so the biggest bill that's coming is that tax bill, and yet we're so ill prepared for it. And then panic ensues. We'll sell anything to anyone just to cover the tax bill. We'll put it on the credit cards. And then next year, it's going to slam us even worse. And it starts this horrible snowball effect of panic. I found as a result, many entrepreneurs, many business owners have a disdain for the work they do. That is this dream they've had now has become this noose around their neck.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a resentment. I resented my own businesses. And that's the absurdity of it. If we're doing to be joyful and be of service and we resent the business and we hate the people we're working with, like that's kind of not good.
Did you resent it because you didn't have time to enjoy it and you didn't have the money to enjoy it? What was because I think realtors may have some of this same issue.
Yeah, I resented paying bills and I couldn't take anything for myself. I remember I at one point had 10 employees. I thought I was hot shit because of all these employees. I had to pay their bills and I had to refinance my house to afford it. And then I'm like resentful of them. Like, do you understand the sacrifice I'm making for you? It was crazy. I hated my business because even though it had achieved millions of dollars of revenue, there was nothing left for me. It made no sense.
Yeah.
So it's when the vision doesn't come true, and then doing more of what's not working. I actually thought, clearly I haven't sold enough. I need to sell more to become profitable, which is the biggest fallacy on the planet. And it's perpetuated by almost every entrepreneur I know that struggles, thinking that sales is the definition of more profit. And it's not. But that's what I did. So I tried to grow more and grow more. But what we have to realize is the more sales we have, the more transactions is actually more stress. The more properties you move, the more responsibility it puts on you to handle that. It's more organizational stress. And often as the business owner themselves, we embody that. So it's not about size. It's not about how much you make. It's how much you're taking that matters.
So, and I think a lot of times our greatest blessings in life come from our pain. I know from us being $600,000 in debt and that sending us into real estate allowed us to want to create wealth and passive income over always just chasing cash flow. What did that pain do for you? How did that catapult you from that painful moment with your child, which had to be enormous, to, did you just wake up and think, well, if I have this problem, so do other people? How did that gap you into where you are?
Yeah. So it wasn't the next morning I woke up and said, I've got this all figured out. And angels are like, hallelujah. No, the next morning I started to booze. We've gone out together. I really don't drink. Socially I'll have a drink, but I really don't drink much. But this part of my life, I'm like, I have to drink to medicate. I was literally using it to squash. And I became an insomniac. I was angry. The pathway out for me and what started me on a road to really finding purpose in the work I do was actually journaling, which is the guy's word for using a diary, by the way. And so when I started,
macho name,
trying to be macho, and a friend of mine told me what the true definition of journaling is. I thought journaling was write a few positive thoughts for the day. I woke up, I put my shoes on, just to get that momentum. And my friend, his name is Joe, he goes, no. He goes, journaling is allowing the thoughts in your mind to be relieved from your mind. So he goes, whatever thoughts in your mind, write it down. So in that point, I was so angry at myself. I was blaming others for my failures. I started to write these angry thoughts, even at God, God sucks. These hateful, angry things. But here's what was so miraculous about that journaling. Sometimes after I wrote down, it was for about 5 seconds or 5 minutes, I felt relief from the stress and I could focus again on moving something forward. Other times it was actually for a few days, I was like, oh my gosh, I have clarity again. And as the negativity seeped back in, I started journaling again, just to scroll thoughts out. And it was in that journaling where I started to challenge my notions around entrepreneurship. We deserve money, but profit isn't coming last. Profit isn't happening at all. And that kind of triggered, maybe profit shouldn't be last. Maybe it should be the first consideration. It's profit first. So the thoughts came out of somewhat anger, somewhat desperation, somewhat frustration. And it started to give me this clarity and this relief. And ultimately, it actually became my life's vocation, writing books.
So how long ago did all this happen?
2008. So 11 years ago, 12 years ago.
Yeah. Wow. And, anything great, takes a little bit of time. But that's a short period of time to go from that kind of situation to where you are now. So If anybody out there in the real estate business finds himself working, and just not having enough left over and not really having the time to enjoy, what would be some of the advice that you'd give them? What do you tell people to do? Because every entrepreneur at some point will, unless they're just a super massive, great
Yeah.
business person when they start out, which I wasn't and most realtors aren't, what would you tell them to do? How would they solve this for themselves?
I would start off by stop looking at the transactions and start seeking out the transformation. And that's significantly different. What I'm saying is when we're of service to our clients, it's not about the transaction, it's about how we're serving them. I actually bought my most recent house through a Keller Williams agent, Jane Conway.
Yay.
Yeah, Jane Conway, New Jersey, extraordinary experience. She cares about the community. She wants the community that she lives in to be a community of embracing each other, of supporting each other, just a loving community where neighbors open their doors to each other and are waving and enjoying a drink or time together. Um, she has a clear transformation she wants. So maybe subconsciously, but I would even dare say when she's evaluating the clients that she's going to serve, she wants to make sure that that's their intentions desired. And now they have a perfect match. Now the seeking out property is actually about more seeking out the neighbors around you. She's had innovative thoughts about having a neighborhood party. Someone's considering a neighborhood. She says, hey, before we look at the house, let's meet the neighbors themselves and let's have a party together. And that mindset is transformational. We start building a reputation on it. Many customers are saying, I want a house, and they're looking for a transaction. The elite customers are saying, I want to find that perfect neighborhood. And someone's like, oh, Jane Conway has that reputation. You want a perfect neighborhood? You got to work with Jane Conway. She knows this community. She loves this community. That's the difference between transactions and transformation. And that's the starting point.
Gotcha. So let's take them through. What are some of the steps that you tell if you're working with entrepreneurs and you're coaching them on all of this? What are some of the first steps you tell them to do with their business that they're probably not doing correctly?
Yeah, so we dig right into profit first, and regardless of the success or the size of your business, profit first can, and I would argue should be implemented immediately because it's a percentage-based system. The basic concept of profit first is it is the envelope system of yesteryear applied to business. And how we do this is we actually set up at the bank that we set up multiple accounts with specific intended use, an account for profit. Profit is intended to reward the shareholder of a business, someone that takes the risk to start a business. Owner's compensation, that is actually salary for the owner-operator, different than profit. Profit's a reward for starting or investing in something. Owner's compensation is the pay for the work you do. Tax reserve, so that big bill, when it comes, we're prepared for it. The operating expenses for the operations of your business. If you're actually buying properties yourself, you maybe even have an inventory account to buy properties. Now, by setting up these accounts at your bank, what we do is when money flows in the business, instead of saying, a $10,000 deposit came in, I have $10,000 to spend. Now you see that money's going to get carved up to its different responsibilities. 10,000 comes in, 500 of that may be in your profit, a big bonus you're going to get at the end of the year. 1,000 of that, or 2,000, goes to paying you a salary. Maybe another 1,500 is reserved for taxes and so forth. And you may realize that $10,000 deposit, only $3,000 is truly available for the operations of the business because the rest is responsible for those other functions. So the first step that I have people take is let's set these accounts at your bank so that we do this on a cash basis. Many people default to saying, well, I can just do this in my accounting system. I can just do this in a spreadsheet. And while you can, it doesn't intercept our what we call behavioral path. What I mean by this is the natural behavior of most business owners is to log into their bank account and check their bank balance. And we sometimes do it weekly, sometimes monthly. Many of us do it daily, or like me, sometimes you do it 4 or 5 times a day. And when I was at all these Keller Williams events, I had the privilege now of just interviewing and surveying the group. I'm like, who checks their bank balance daily? And I would say 90% of hands go up. These have hundreds and hundreds of real estate agents. Hundreds of hands go up. And what we need to do is set up these bank accounts at our bank, because if our default is to log into our bank and see how much money we have, we need it carved up there so we can see very clearly what the intended use is. The analogy is this. I believe in exercise. It's extremely important, but admittedly, I don't look forward to exercise. I'm not like, hey, I can't wait to go running today. So, but I do like the feeling afterwards. What I used to do is keep my running shoes in my and then I'd walk into the kitchen to get coffee. And now I was way off on a pattern that would take me to work and not exercise. I realized I need to intercept my natural behavior, which is get out of bed, walk to the bathroom. I do that every morning. So now I put my sneakers on top of my toilet seat. So when I wake up, the only way I can use the bathroom is by grabbing my shoes. Well, with the shoes in hand, I'm like, oh, I guilt myself into just put them on your feet. You have to. And when they're on my feet, like, let's get the run over and it's done. And by result, I religiously exercise now for years. And the same thing in our business. By allocating money to its intended use at our bank, where we're naturally going, we're going to become religious about this and treat profit like it is important and critical to a business and take it first.
I love it. My only thing I think about when I say that is, what about my 2 a.m. pee? I sure don't want to go run then. You must
Oh
only.
yeah, you're going to be working out 2:30 in the morning. Yeah.
Yeah, I have to train my bladder to hold off till it's time to run. But I do love that, and that works for me too, to set those clothes out. I love this. You said in step 2, you said set up 2 more savings accounts with another bank rather than the one you're using for daily operations. And I love that you called it a no temptation. There's no temptation account. So talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, temptation is a deadly thing because often humanity uses willpower to prevent access to temptation, but willpower is a muscle. It fatigues, it gives out, and we cave in. A classic temptation with food, for me, for example, is chocolate chip cookies. I have this addiction for them, and you've heard me talk about this before. I cannot stop myself eating them, and so we have a simple rule at our house. There's no chocolate chip cookies in the house. As a result, I don't consume any. If there was, and occasionally when my daughter comes back from college, she makes a batch of chocolate chip cookies, I play the same stupid game every time. I'm like, oh, you shouldn't have. I really can't. And I try to avoid them. And I'm like, well, I haven't had one in a month. And I have one bite. And I'm like, give me all of them. And I'm like hitting my daughter so I can consume these cookies. I lose my mind. That's how temptation works. It fades, it fatigues, and then we give in. So what we need to do with profit is we need to hide it actually from ourselves. If we leave the profit at our primary bank, when we log in that bank account and we look at our operating expenses and we can't pay our bills, we're like, well, that profit's sitting there. Let me just borrow that from ourselves. We steal from ourselves. It defeats the system. The lesson is this: when you don't have enough money in your operating account, you can't pay your bills. That's your business telling you can't afford your bills. There's a flaw in the business. We're not getting enough margin. We're incurring too much cost. Something needs to be resolved. But it's tempting to borrow from the profit account. So we transfer that profit over to a secondary bank so it's out of sight, out of mind. The same thing with taxes. If taxes sit there too long, it's tempting to effectively steal from the government and take the money. So we're going to hide that money away from ourselves. So that's reserved for the government at a second bank. And when it's out of sight, out of mind, we are forced to comply with what's truly available for our operations. That's the OPEX account.
I love that. And my assistant's kind of laughing over here because a couple of years ago, I went in the office and said, okay, here's the thing, guys. I have this thing called the appetite gene, and I don't know when to stop eating things that I like. So you guys hide all the chocolate, all the cookies. And do not tell me, no matter what I threaten you with, do not tell me where they are. So she's sitting over here laughing, pointing at me as you say that about the chocolate chip cookies.
That reminds me, I don't know if you ever saw the movie Young Frankenstein, where Gene Wilder walks in to meet with Frankenstein, and he's like, whatever you do, I need to calm the beast. Do not let me out, no matter how much I plead. And then the next scene, he's like, let me out. He's like terrified. So
yeah, so true. Well, I love this because what it really boils down to is, it takes away the temptation to do what is a habit we already have, and it creates a new habit. And I think everything we do is based on our disciplines and our habits.
Agreed.
And any discipline and habit you have you can either get a new one or change the one you have. It's just going to take some time, and it's going to take the very first step and the very first thing that you should do. And I think what I hear you saying is not focus on growth, because every business has to focus on growth. Just don't spend the money you don't have before you have it. Would that be a fair assessment of what you're saying? Because I don't want people to hear you don't go out and try to get new business. You just don't go. I mean, because in the real estate business, quite honestly, Mike, one of the issues that we have is a lot of our agents have gone out, and instead of lead generating themselves, they're buying leads from people.
Mm-hmm.
They're buying leads instead of building those relationships and doing it as a foot soldier approach. So kind of clarify that you're not necessarily saying you don't grow the business, because every business needs to grow, right?
Every business must grow, but I would argue growth is a natural consequence of a profitable, healthy business. Because when you take your profit first, you must focus on the things that yield profit. acquiring lists, like buying lists, I would argue many people do that stuff very haphazardly. It's actually a knee-jerk reaction, like, oh, we need leads. Oh, I'll buy leads. There's no thought put into, are these the leads that are speak to the specific target market we want to concentrate on? Is this demographic represented in this group? Are these people that are going to buy for the premium that I want to dictate because I offer such a unique special service specifically to them? That thought is rarely put into it. It's like, we need leads, just buy whatever. And then we start this downward spiral because to sustain, now we need to sell to a mix of people with all different types of needs, and it becomes the sell anything to anyone mentality, which further starts this downward spiral of needing to sell more. So we constantly are growing the base of sales, but never speaking to a specific community that needs a specific need and serving them in a specific way, which is the definition of profitability. So you do have to grow, but you need to grow right. That's the key. And to grow right, we need to acquire profitable leads. We need to be very clear on the definition of that. So yes, you do need to grow, but that's not the first thought. The first thought is, how are we going to grow healthily?
So what I hear you saying, that is what I think about is, there are these ideal customers that, number one, you're happier with and you have more energy when you work with. So therefore you give better service and they refer more
That's
people.
right. That's right.
And there's also customers that you have better margins with.
That's right.
So is that something that you kind of went back and did even with your business and kind of just looked and said, who's my ideal customer? And who's the person I, first of all, would love to work with? I love helping and gives me energy when I do help them. And then I make the most money.
Yes, you nailed it. So I believe in this process so much. I wrote a book about this. So I wrote a book called The Pumpkin Plan. And just a quick analogy was, I was studying pumpkin farmers, and there's a small faction of pumpkin farmers who are the oddballs. They grow these colossal pumpkins, but they were fascinating people. They take effectively the same steps as an ordinary farmer, but just change a few things, and the pumpkin responds with explosive growth. And it's like, how does this translate to business? Well, I found a business can follow the same steps. And the core essence, you already nailed it, Linda, is identify a community that first gives us joy. That's the first step. Because if I look at my client base, just a haphazard client base, some of those clients I like working with, some of them kind of neutral, like meh, and others like, they suck. They are life-draining people. I can't deal with them. And what happens is, if I have this mix of customers, the customers that I can't stand probably can't stand me. We're forced to do business together, and I actually push them off to later in the day. If I get a call from one of them, I'm like, I'll call them back at the end of the day. I don't want to deal with that miserable soul. But the people I love to do business with, hopefully love to do business with me, when they call, I answer the phone right away. I'm like, how's your day going? Because they're the ones I want. So for me to grow a healthy business, I first have to identify the people that give me joy and clone those people, get more of them. But there's an intersection too. It's not just people that give me joy, it's people that support the financial viability. So the clients who purchase from me repeatedly or at the highest dollar volume and give me joy, it's the intersection of people that I want to clone. And that's where your avatar comes from. Look at your existing client base, identify the ones that buy from you repeatedly or at the highest premium points, and you love doing business with. Then get very clear on who they are, what's unique about them, and then insert yourself in that community. Are you great with maybe single parents? You didn't even realize that? Are you great with the gay community? Are you great with a religious faction? Who is it? Once you get clarity on that, then you become present in that community, and now you can clone those customers.
Well, and I would even add, for realtors, who are your customers that send you the most business? Because they love you, they know you, they refer everybody they know to you. So we're a referral-based business. So go back and really get clarity around, who are those people that have sent you the most business last year? Because those are the people that really think you are amazing.
Yes, and if you love them and you enjoy those people that are referring you, realize birds of a feather flock together. If you like that person, they were going to hang out with other people who are like them. So the referrals will often be consistently the same quality, if you will, type of person, and that's a real asset. So focus on the referrals for sure, but particularly the referrals from the people that you value and enjoy the most, because you're going to find more people like them there.
Awesome. So as we're getting close to the end here, I want to kind of give people some final steps. How much would you recommend a person start with? Because this isn't something, I've always, I used to read books and I'd always hear about this automatic savings. And this is one of the first times we learned to do it, is to put, have our title company take a certain percentage of our money, which was similar to what you were saying. back in the early days, and they would take 15% of our commission, put it over into an AG Edwards account, and that's what we would use to buy investment properties. So what I had learned through all these books I'd read is I kept hearing about this automatic system, and it's kind of the no temptation system, if you will. But I always worried that I wouldn't have enough money left over.
Yeah.
And a lot of people on the listening to this podcast will think the same thing. So if you were advising them, how much would you tell them to start with profit first that they take off? Where would they start?
Yeah, this is a little thing you write on a sticky pad and put on your desk. Start slow and let it grow. And what I mean by this is, for most businesses who've never done anything like this, we start off with 1% of money allocated to profit and nothing else. Literally, we set up one single additional account called the profit account, make it a savings account, and 1% of any inbound income we put in there. So now if that $10,000 deposit comes in, I'm saying take $100, that's 1%, put in the profit account. What's left over is now $9,900 in your standard operations. And now you can operate your real estate business like you always have before, because it's inconsequential. $10,000, $9,900, it's basically the same. But what's highly impactful is the fact that you've reserved $100 for profit. And what happens is next time you log into your bank account, you're going to see it sitting there. And you're going to allocate 1% again for the next deposit and so forth. And that starts building the muscle. Because now it's like, well, if I can do it with 1%, can I do it with 2 or 3? And can I set these other accounts? We have over 300,000 companies that have implemented Profit First. And the successful businesses, those 300,000, have started slow. And the rollout of Profit First to its full system can be 6 months to a year. But you got to start today with that one account.
Got it. And then the second one, I would assume, would be their tax account, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I do. Tax account after that, because that tax bill is shocking, but it blindsides us every single year, and we can put a stop to that.
Yeah, awesome. So as we wrap up here, what would be any final thoughts you would want to tell them? What's something I should have asked you, but I didn't?
Well, a couple of things. So don't delay is, I think, the biggest thing. I think we hear things and then we get kind of overwhelmed in the minutia and say, wow, this is a lot of stuff they talked about, and I'll think about it, we won't do it. Immediate action supersedes tons of thought. Funny enough, I was invited back to my old high school yesterday to do a speech, and I was just ready. I got in the auditorium like the kids to throw tomatoes and go, loser! Like I was totally ready for that. And they were gracious and kind to me. They didn't do that. But I did a demonstration that never ceases to surprise me. I held up, in this case, a $20 bill, and I asked all the students, like, who wants it? And of course, all the hands went up. I repeated, who wants it? Who wants it? And I repeated it 20 plus times before one student finds like, he's going to keep going, and got out of the chair and actually grabbed the money from me.
Yeah.
And I said, congratulations, you just made $20. And I said, I want you to realize in life, it's not the people who want something who are successful. It's the people who take the risk of being the first to action that get the result. And that's the lesson here with Profit First. Wanting to be more profitable will not bring you profit. Thinking about will not. Take a definitive, strong, singular action. And then simply go to bank, set one account, profit, allocate 1%. And that is the start of this process.
Awesome. I love it. I love it. So tell our audience, if you would, how can they connect with you? I know I went on your website and you've got some great opportunities. So what would be some ways if they want to learn more and they want to dig deeper into this information? What are some of the ways they can connect with you?
Thank you for letting me share this. So my website's MikeMichalowicz.com. No one can spell Michalowicz. Here's the shortcut. Yeah, here's a shortcut. Go to Mike Motorbike. The great irony of, that's my nickname, by the way, is Mike Motorbike. The great irony is I've never driven a motorcycle in my life. It's just a rhyme and people love it. So go to MikeMotorbike.com. All my books are up there. So Profit First, my brand new book called Fix This Next. It helps you pinpoint what to work on. Actually, it kind of works in cohesion with Gary's One Thing. And other books are there. I'm a podcaster myself. I have a show called Entrepreneurship Elevated. I'm a blogger. I used to write for the Wall Street Journal. Access to all those things, if you go to MikeMotorbike.com and click on Apply Now, or Get the Tools Now, I should say. Click on Get the Tools Now. All that stuff will be emailed to you in a single email. No subscription, no waiting. One email, all that stuff is sent to you. MikeMotorbike.com.
So tell me a little bit about, you said the newest book is Fix This Next.
Yeah, I think I've never been this excited about a book. And the reason is, the thesis of this book is, the biggest challenge entrepreneurs face is knowing what their biggest challenge is.
Mm.
What I've come to realize is entrepreneurs consistently, business owners consistently take 2 steps forward and 3 steps back in their business and are frustrated. The reason is they're working on arbitrary things. Usually the apparent issues that are in front of them are the most obvious, so they work on those. But within the business at any given time, there can only be a singular, most impactful thing, the one thing. The question, of course, is how do you find it in your business? So this book is a compass, if you will, to bring you right to the one thing you should work on next. Once you resolve it, going through the sequence, it will find the next thing you need to work on and the next thing after that. It's called Fix This Next.
I love it, because sometimes we are so deep into everything that we can't.
The weeds, right? Yeah.
Weeds. You can't see the forest for the trees. So I love that. I think, and what I love about what you've done, Mike, is you've taken something that can be very, very complex. And I think all great leaders do this. Gary Keller's fabulous at this also.
Yeah.
And you bring it down to something very, very simple. I mean, honestly, sometimes accounting and all that stuff just makes your eyeballs glaze.
Tell me about it. I know.
I'd much rather just go talk to somebody and make a sale. It's just easier. For most salespeople, that's the truth. But I love this, because you find what's complicated for people and you make it simple. So I appreciate that.
Thanks, Linda.
So thank you. So just remember, if you have a question, a comment, or a challenge that you have that you'd like for Dana and I to help you with, reach out to us at info@everything life and real estate. And remember, the more information you give us, the more details you give us about where you are in your business or your life, the more we're going to be able to help you. And remember, if you would love to do something great for Dana and I, be sure and subscribe to our podcast and refer us to anybody that you know that might really enjoy some of our podcasts with amazing people like we have here today, which is Mike. So give us a review also on whatever platform that you listen to your podcast on. We would greatly appreciate it. And Mike, I want to say thank you, and let's do dinner again soon.
I would love to do that again.
Awesome. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Be sure to subscribe for more business strategies and tactics to inspire you to live an abundant real estate life. Don't forget to rate and review so we can bring you the best content. Find this and other valuable information at everythinglifeandrealestate.com.